Hi, I'm Gordon from Camera Labs, and this is my 6-month review of the QNAP TVS-472XT, a network attached storage device, or NAS for short, that's designed to store and share your data with very fast access, whether connected over a traditional network or directly to your computer. It features 10 gigabit Ethernet as well as dual Thunderbolt 3 ports, allowing not only quicker network connections than most NAS units, but also supporting direct access that's actually fast enough for video editing, something still fairly unique in the NAS market. Now, this unit is available in 4, 6 or 8 drive bay versions, and in this review I tested the 4 bay TVS-472XT version. It costs around $1,100 or pounds for the enclosure, and like most NAS units you'll need to buy your own drive separately, and I'll talk about the ones I used in just a moment. The combination of Ethernet and Thunderbolt ports allows the TVS-472XT to work as network or directly attached storage, or even both simultaneously, with potential speeds that can match or even exceed many external SSD drives. This speed means it can be used by photographers and video creators as fast production or library storage, but with the traditional NAS benefits of shared content, multiple users, online access, media streaming, cloud backup and RAID configurations to better protect from drive failure. I've been using the 4 bay TVS-472XT for 6 months now, and in this review I'll show you how it's become an invaluable part of my workflow for both photo and video work, as well as for general storage and backup. If you're new to network storage, a NAS simply allows you to share a drive over a network between multiple users or devices. 2 or more people can access the same drive at the same time, while other devices like media streamers could be playing music, photos or video stored in it too. Since the drive is connected to a network, it can also be configured for external access over the internet for remotely retrieving files when you're out and about, or automatically backing up to cloud-based services. Most NAS devices also support multiple drives working together in a pool to deliver larger total capacities, often with faster speeds than just one at a time, and often also some degree of redundancy to better protect your data from disk failure. So in theory, if one disk breaks, you won't lose all your data and you can keep working while you replace it with a new one. A NAS can be enormously flexible, but is generally limited in speed by the local network connection, typically operating at 1 gigabit speeds. While the QNAP TVS-472XT is equipped with a pair of RJ45 gigabit Ethernet ports for compatibility with popular and cheap network gear, it additionally boasts a much faster 10 gigabit Ethernet port, as well as a pair of Thunderbolt 3 USB-C ports. The 10 gigabit port can be connected to a compatible switch or directly to a computer that's lucky enough to be equipped with one like an iMac Pro, but it's the Thunderbolt 3 ports that make the 472XT really special and much more flexible than most NAS units. These allow you to directly connect the NAS to a suitably equipped computer like a MacBook Pro laptop and effectively use it as a fast external drive, while still allowing other users or devices to access it at the same time over a traditional network. This best of both worlds approach of combining network and direct attached storage was pioneered by QNAP, and while it's already produced a number of Thunderbolt equipped NAS units, the TVS-472XT takes everything it's learned so far and delivers the functionality in an affordable package with decent future-proofing. Right, now I've got all that out of the way, let's get into the review and the benchmarks. Externally, the TVS-472XT is a fairly compact, roughly cube-shaped box measuring 200mm wide, 188mm tall and 280mm deep, allowing it to sit on a desk or squeeze onto most shelves. It weighs around 5.5 kilograms, but you'll need to also factor in the drives too if weight is an issue. It looks more like a computer peripheral than the earlier, more consumer-focused TS453BT3, but I like the functional design and prefer the all-metal construction to that model. The front panel is dominated by the 4 drive bays, which I'll show you in a moment, but differentiating it from most NAS units is the additional LCD display which shows the current status along with any warnings at a glance. There's even the option to hear status reports by voice over a small built-in speaker.
System boot completed.
The display is joined by 2 control buttons, a selection of status lights including one for each drive, and an infrared sensor for use with an optional remote control. Remember, you can also use this unit as a media server connected directly to a TV or Hi-Fi over HDMI. In the lower right corner is a single USB 3.1 Gen 2 port surrounded by a chunky backup button. You can connect an external drive or perhaps a memory card via an adapter here and configure the NAS to automatically back up its contents or make a backup onto it. I use it for the latter, connecting a portable drive for an automated backup of my most important folders before then taking the drive off site. Remember, if you have fire, flood or theft, it's going to probably destroy all of your drives that are in that location, so it's important to make a backup and put it somewhere else. Now, front-mounted USB ports aren't uncommon on NAS units, but many run at slower speeds, which can make external backups a bit of a drag, so I'm pleased this one operates at 3.1 Gen 2 speeds up to 10 gigabits per second. The rear panel is where you'll find the bulk of the ports, starting with a block of two RJ45s running at gigabit Ethernet speeds, alongside a pair of USB-C and a pair of USB-A ports. Now, all but one of these USB ports run at fast 3.1 Gen 2 speeds, leaving just the upper blue coloured USB port running at older 3.0 speeds, because the other high-speed port is on the front of the unit. Below this block are a microphone input and line output, while above is a single HDMI port. Again, all for media use, as again the unit can be connected directly to a TV or hi-fi. The HDMI port here supports 2.0 speeds, allowing it to deliver 4K up to 60p. In terms of the fast connectivity, you'll find the single 10 gigabit Ethernet port above the main block, while the dual Thunderbolt 3 ports are delivered via a PCI Express card at the top of the unit, leaving a single 4-lane PCI Express slot underneath for future expansion. Note the earlier TS-453BT3, which you'll probably also be considering, had on-board Thunderbolt, allowing more convenient front-mounted ports. But its 10 gigabit Ethernet port was delivered on a card, and it only had one PCI Express slot, so it was occupied. And while the TS-453BT3 supported two HDMI ports, they ran at slower 1.4 speeds, so could only deliver 4K up to 30p. The USB ports on that older model also run at slower 3.0 speeds versus the 3.1 Gen 2 speeds on all but one of the ports on the 472XT. For me, it's this faster connectivity coupled with the spare expansion slot that makes the 472XT more desirable. The system itself is cooled by one large 120mm fan, while the power supply in the corner has its own smaller fan, and the CPU inside employs a pair of 60mm fans. I'll show you them in a minute. When configured to run quietly, the TVS-472XT is fairly discreet, at least in desktop computer terms, and acceptable on a work table, but probably not something you'd want in a living room, at least not sat next to you. QNAP quotes the noise levels as 28.1 decibels from about a metre away. Now here's an advantage that the previous TS-453BT3 has on this model. It can run more quietly thanks to using an external power brick that allows it to avoid a power supply fan, so it's better suited for quieter locations. But for me, I keep my NAS behind a wall in a separate utility room, so it's not an issue. The TVS-472XT supports 4 drives, while the 672XT and 872XT support 6 and 8 drives respectively. QNAP makes it easy to install the drives. Just push down the locking clip at the bottom and lever up the taller panel to slide out the drive tray. If you're using 3.5-inch drives, the installation is toolless. Just line up the holes on the sides and clip on the fastening panels. You can add screws to further secure the drive if desired, but I was fine with the toolless installation. Then slide the drive tray back into the NAS and clip the lock down to secure it. QNAP has a list of recommended drives. I used a set of 4 6TB Western Digital Red drives running at 5400 RPM. These are designed for NAS use and they cost around $180 each at the time I made this video. 2.5-inch drives and SSDs can also be accommodated. You can now power up the NAS to get started on the software side, but as a former PC builder and all-round geek, I had to take a look inside. Removing 3 screws on the back allows you to lift the lid and reveal the tidy interior. Behind a substantial heatsink is the Pentium G5400T 2-core processor running at 3.1 GHz that powers the system and allows it to better handle high speeds and loads compared to the Celeron in the earlier TS453BT. The fans on the heatsink also improve airflow across this side of the motherboard, which additionally includes the 10 gigabit Ethernet chip. The motherboard is equipped with 2 PCI Express slots, at the top a 16-lane slot with direct CPU access, and below it a 4-lane slot with PCH access. By default, the supplied Thunderbolt 3 card occupies the top slot for the fastest speeds, leaving the slower slot free for, say, an optional GPU card, faster Ethernet or wireless access. Alongside the PCI Express slots are a pair of M2 ports for connecting optional NVMe SSD cards for caching. If you're regularly accessing the same files or applications, then SSD caching can accelerate the overall performance. It's really good for databases, for example. But if, like me, you're mostly randomly accessing large photo and video files, you'll probably be better off installing faster main drives if you want to boost in speed. And finally, the main system memory is accessed through a cutout revealed by removing the drive trays. There's two DDR4 SO-DIMM slots supporting up to 32GB of RAM. QNAP supplies a pair of 2GB cards as standard for 4GB of RAM in total, which doesn't sound like much, but it actually should be sufficient for a small number of users. For me, it's mostly just one or two at a time. The initial configuration is very simple. Just connect the NAS to your network, power it up. My configuration takes about 4 minutes to boot up, but you generally leave it running afterwards. Then use a web browser to set the initial options. From the QNAP control panel, you can then configure the disks as desired. To get you started, QNAP supplies an AC power cord and 3 network cables, 2 for gigabit Ethernet and 1 for 10 gigabit connections. Sadly though, you'll need to buy your own Thunderbolt cable, or cables. Sad because if you want the top 40 gigabit per second speeds from them, they don't come cheap. You're looking at about $50 or pounds for a 2 meter 6 foot cable. I went for a Belkin model which runs through a wall from the utility room to my work area. Once the NAS is running, you'll need to configure your drive pool into usable storage. There's loads of options, but most owners will probably choose to group them into one large volume for improved performance and some protection against disk failure. With a 4-drive NAS, the main options are RAID 5, 6 or 10, with RAID 5 giving the greatest capacity and speed, but protection against only one drive failing, while RAID 6 and 10 offer protection against 2 failures, but with a lower total capacity. Now, there's loads of articles and videos explaining the pros and cons of different RAID levels, but for me, I generally opt for RAID 5 on smaller arrays to maximize the capacity and performance. But do remember, RAID by itself is not backup, and you may also experience unrecoverable read errors when rebuilding an array. So always set up a second line of defense using apps to back up to an external drive and/or cloud storage. I do both, backing up to portable USB drives I can transport off-site, as well as trickling updates to online services. Now, like most modern NAS units, QNAP provides a bunch of apps that easily let you set up backups, and it supports cloud services like Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, Amazon S3 or Backblaze. So do explore these sooner rather than later. To test the performance of the NAS, I ran a series of benchmarks over different connections, first with my 4 drives configured as RAID 10, then as RAID 5 for comparison. I'll start with the Blackmagic Disk Speed Test utility running on my 2018 13-inch MacBook Pro over a Thunderbolt connection for the fastest potential speed, first with the NAS configured as RAID 10 with the 1GB stress load result on the left and the 5GB stress result on the right. The 5GB stress is the more common one you'll see, and as expected for an array which effectively allows 2 disks to be read simultaneously, you're looking at read and write speeds of around 330 to 340 megabytes per second. Repeating the test with the NAS configured as RAID 5 allows 3 disks to be read simultaneously, boosting my read and write speeds over a direct Thunderbolt connection to 440 megabytes per second in the 5GB stress test. That's pretty impressive stuff, far exceeding what you can achieve over a traditional 1GB network connection. Remember, this is with physical, mechanical hard disks, not even SSDs. In fact, the RAID 5 speeds I measured there are not far off what I found for the SanDisk Extreme Portable SSD, itself a fast external drive connected to the same USB-C port on my Mac. You can see the result for the SanDisk on the right here, where it scored over 480 megabytes per second for writes and over 525 megabytes per second for reads, while on the left side is the WD My Passport 4TB Ultra, a mechanical 2.5-inch drive which ran roughly 4 times slower still. Remember, both the SanDisk and the W drives here are directly connected portable drives for single user access, whereas the QNAP presents a shareable NAS volume with a much larger capacity and protection against disk failure, so it's giving you speed and versatility. The speed was also confirmed in real-life tests where I timed the transfer of a 2.99GB folder containing 177 JPEG and RAW images to and from the NAS, this time using 3 different connections for comparison: a wireless LAN over Wi-Fi, a traditional cabled gigabit Ethernet, and direct Thunderbolt 3. Starting with the RAID 10 configuration, the folder took 112 seconds to read from the NAS and 159 seconds to write back to the NAS over my Wi-Fi. Switching to a wide gigabit Ethernet network saw the read and write speeds greatly accelerate to 36 seconds each, clearly illustrating the speed benefits over wireless, or at least my own wireless. But switching to direct Thunderbolt allowed me to read or write the folder in just 14 seconds, almost 3 times quicker still. I then retested with the NAS configured as RAID 5 and measured a similar speed for the wireless, identifying the connection as the bottleneck, but shaved around 4 seconds from the gigabit Ethernet speeds and a couple more seconds from the write time of the Thunderbolt 3 connection. The gigabit speeds were now being limited by the network connection, although the Thunderbolt looked like it had bandwidth to spare and could hopefully benefit from fitting faster SSDs to the NAS rather than mechanical disks if I wanted a speed improvement. But again, compare the speeds I measured for the same folder test on the SanDisk Extreme Portable SSD and the WD My Passport Ultra. The portable SSD managed an impressive read speed of just 7 seconds, but matched the NAS for the write speed of 14 seconds. Now what these results prove is the QNAP NAS over a Thunderbolt connection can roughly match the speeds of a directly connected SSD drive, while again sporting the benefits of shareable storage, large capacities, protection against disk failure and online backup. And once again, remember I was using mechanical hard disks. I could probably get even faster speeds if I switched those for SSDs. QNAP really has delivered the best of both worlds with its Thunderbolt NAS drives. You get the potential speed of a directly connected SSD drive that's quick enough to actually edit 4K video from, but coupled with the benefits of a traditional NAS including large shared storage pools, protection against disk failure and automated online backup. The TVS-472XT hits the sweet spot too, with a compact 4-bay enclosure that cherry-picks the best of the connectivity of the higher-end models without being excessive for most smaller operations. You get a single 10GB Ethernet port and twin Thunderbolt 3 ports, allowing you to directly connect 3 devices simultaneously for very fast access. And if you're lucky enough to also have a 10GB Ethernet network switch, well, the Thunderbolt ports also act as bridges, allowing suitably equipped Macs or PCs to connect at the maximum speed without having to splash out on expensive 10GB Ethernet adapters. Twin NVMe M2 ports and upgradable RAM also provide easy routes for increasing performance for certain applications. Meanwhile, a wealth of USB 3.1 ports allow quick connection to external drives, including a handy front-mounted port for easy backup, while an HDMI 2.0 port on the back lets you connect the unit directly to a TV for media streaming in 4K up to 60p. QNAP rounds it all off with a powerful software suite that makes it easy to run media servers, security cameras, or automated backups to numerous cloud services. As someone who's used traditional NAS units for years, I was already won over by the traditional network aspects, but the direct Thunderbolt connection transforms its flexibility. Here's a drive I can use for both traditional network storage and sharing, as well as super fast direct access, similar in speed to a quick external SSD drive. As such, I can highly recommend it to any photographer or video creator, where the only real questions remaining are whether to go for the 4, 6 or 8 bay model and what drives to populate it with. Right, that's it for this review. I hope you found it useful, something a little bit different. We all need to back up after all, so much data around these days, right? As always, if you found this video useful, give me a like and a follow, and if you really found it useful, you can treat me to a coffee or treat yourself to my in-camera book. And as always, I've got links for the books, the coffee, the Camera Labs t-shirt, and also to check the latest prices on this product. And if you're after more information, whether on the QNAP NAS unit or on any cameras or lenses, then head on over to cameralabs.com. Once again, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of this. Do you want me to do more kind of backup peripherals? And also let me know what your backup strategies are. Right, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.